The following is a presentation of WLCN 96.3 FM and WLCNonline.com.
Morning and welcome to Viewpoint, that highly rated talk show with arbitrage ratings of 50 or better in Burtonview. I don't know what they are in Broadwell and Beeson. In any event, this highly rated talk show, as we have some extra guests this morning. Before we start, we always try to start with Viewpoint with a kudo. Kudos to my co-host Lloyd Kirby, who originated a very clever posting on the internet the other day. April the 1st came around. And Lloyd celebrated April 1st by announcing, purportedly, the sale of WLCN to a group of investors over in mid-Nebraska. And he went on and on, detailed about how this was going to affect Jim Ash and WLCN. I thought it was very cleverly written, Lloyd, so kudos to you, sir.
Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. That just sort of struck me. And
it was a fun read. Let's get right. We got two guys who, given of their time and they're given them their talents, too. Mm-hmm. Come and visit with us this morning. Why don't you introduce these two gentlemen for us?
All right. Well, if you're watching online, on the right is our newest member on our payroll, Curtis Fox, here for the second week in a row. He was with us last week with the Heritage and Flight Museum, sharing information about that. And joining him on the left, Jeff Hayes with the Illinois Valley Parachute Club, which is now taking up residence at the Logan County Airport. So, gentlemen, thanks for being with us.
Good morning.
Which begs the question on air. What prompts anybody to jump out of a perfectly fine airplane? Now, let's go to Jeff Hayes first.
Well, the normal answer to that is I don't see too many perfectly good airplanes. So it's a good idea to have a bailout system.
Well, at what age were you when you made your first jump, Jeff?
22 years old. I was,
God, 50 years ago.
yeah.
I was going to say 5 years ago.
Almost. Yeah, no.
Seriously. What,
44 years
you
ago.
were 22 years old and a young shoat and full of vim and vigor,
Yep.
supposedly. What prompted you to be interested in jumping?
Never
It's
even thought
unusual-
about it.
It's an unusual sport.
Yeah, never even thought about it. I guess this club was in Pekin when I was a child, and I didn't even know about it. And I grew up in Pekin,
Uh-huh.
and I didn't know anything about it. But there was a fellow I was working with. I was a pipe fitter apprentice. His name was Mac Holt, and he was a pipe fitter, my journeyman, and he had jumped in the service. I believe Fort Bragg. I'm not sure exactly where, but he made mention he was wanting to go back out and jump again. And I said, jump? He said, yeah, we're going to go out jumping out of an airplane out in Minear, Illinois. And I said, can I go too? He said, sure. So, and he was 45 or 50 years old. He was an older gentleman. But he made it sound like it might be a lot of fun. I said, yeah, I'll go too. And a friend of mine went with me too, another buddy of mine I went to school with. We went out there on Friday evening, Saturday morning, and we were ready to jump that afternoon.
I'll be darned. And you did.
Well, no, the winds picked up,
Oh, well, that's, yeah.
and they wouldn't let us jump because if it's over 10-mile-an-hour winds back then, that was the maximum, was 10. So they wouldn't let you go. So we had to wait, and they said, well, if you really want to jump, come back tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock in the morning, and we'll get you up in the air early because the winds are always down in the morning. So we were back at 6 o'clock in the morning, or I was, and several of us were, and we jumped all day that day and made 6 jumps.
Mr. Hayes, what did you first think when you left that perfectly fine airplane and were in a free fall before you pulled the D-ring?
Well, one thing is when you're on this training, you didn't have to pull a ripcord. It was a static line, just like
I see.
the Army
Just like the Air Corps.
But you had to climb out of the door, out of the little Cessna airplane, a 4-seat airplane, and hang on to the strut and blow in the wind a little bit and look back inside and wait for them to give you a thumbs up. And then you just kind of look forward and let go. And I honestly don't know what I was thinking at the time, other than being scared.
Did you check your trousers?
Yeah. That's what I've told everybody. If they say they weren't scared on their first jump, I believe they're lying.
Yeah, I'm
I
sure
think
that's
everybody
correct,
is.
Curtis, how old were you, son?
When I made my first jump,
Mm-hmm.
um, 20, 24.
Old enough to know better.
Yeah, should have. I made my first jump at a club north of Clinton that was flying off of a farm strip over there at the time. Maybe in 1972, 73. Can't remember. No.
Well, young enough to know better, but
Well, no
well,
better.
let's just start. Let's be serious for a second and take a novice who's never jumped and take us through the steps that you'll take a novice through before you push him out of the plane.
Well, back when I started, they pretty much the only way to train was through the old original Army style, static line, where it automatically opened. Now they've had some changes to where in the early 90s they come out with a tandem parachute, which you basically have 2 guys strapped together under one parachute.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have an instructor getting out of the plane with you. You're tied together the whole time, from the time you exit till the time you hit the ground. And it's opened the door for so many people to do it. People that never thought they ever could or climb out. Now you're with an instructor the whole time. So that's opened the door there. But it's such a better training method and safer that just about every drop zone you go to now make you do at least one tandem parachute before they start training on your own. Our club still, as small as it is, we still did offer the static line training program. Mm-hmm. It's a slower training program. It's much slower, but I think it's I can't say it's safer because those guys are really safe on the way they do it. Mm-hmm. They do the tandem jump, and then the next step after that, they do what's called an accelerated free fall jump, which 2 guys climb out, 1 guy will climb out, and then the student will climb out, and then another guy will climb out, and you'll have 1 on each side of you holding on, and then you all 3 go into free fall. Now, you're not connected to them, they're just holding on to you by hands. And they're giving you hand signals and telling you exactly what to do to correct your body position, and then tell you when to pull the ripcord. If you don't pull the ripcord, they're right there to pull the ripcord. And then it progresses from there. It's amazing the way they do it now. And they also incorporate the wind tunnels. They've got a couple of wind tunnels around. Closest one, I believe, is up by around Chicago. There's 2 of them, I believe, up around there. And after about 5 to 10 jumps, they try to get these kids, I say kids because it's usually younger people, they get them to go to that wind tunnel. Then they get in that wind tunnel, and they just hold them up there in the air, and they learn how to hold their body in the right position and feel the wind, and then they come back out and start jumping again. So.
Do you find many ex-military people still wanting to do a little jumping? Are you familiar with much of that in your club?
There's a few that are still hanging in there. Most of them that are from the military, they still like to do what they call the style and accuracy, where they jump out and they try to hit a certain target. And they're talking, when they talk about hitting a certain target, they strike this electronic pad with the heel of their foot that measures millimeters or whatever from dead centers. So it's very, very accurate. The Army guys like that.
Lloyd, I'd given some thought to going for the Guinness Book of Records.
Oh, yeah?
Then I decided divorce would be very expensive, and so I forgot that in it. But I had a latent desire to be a jumper. At this age, if I'd fall, I'd break an arm, and that would be it.
Yeah, you said something about jumping before, and the only thing I would say is, as long as you can pick your feet up. If you're sitting in a chair, if you can raise both of your knees up, feet up off the ground a little ways, then you'd be safe.
Therein lies my problem, Curtis.
Got to be able to pick your feet up.
Now, Curtis, when did you first become interested in the field of aviation? As a young man?
Well, that's an interesting story.
It's all over. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. In one of her very infrequent visits back to Lincoln, my sister was here in probably 1964. She was in the Air Force at the time and just was on leave and came to Lincoln. And I might have said something like a kid says, "Oh, I'd like to fly." And she, being a bossy big sister, which she still points out to me, went out to the airport here in Lincoln and signed me up for flight lessons and ground school lessons. And so I did that. In fact, the couple that ran the airport at the time, Jack and Dolores Dunn, hired me to be their line kid, at the time.
A gopher.
Yeah, a gopher. I fueled airplanes, mowed grass. It was fun. They were wonderful people to me. Very nice. So that's how I got started while I was still in high school.
Well,
and I would mention, I didn't think about this until years later. I took my first aviation test to get my private pilot certificate on my sister's birthday. And I passed. But at the time, I was a kid and I didn't even think, that's her birthday. And
I wonder what Emily would think about that if she knew her son was up there flying around.
Well, she was all for it.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting? Yeah. The matter of jumping, what you got to the precipice and something nudged you a little bit to think in terms of jumping.
Yeah, I can't even explain it. So I went through these flying, not flying periods in my life, and it happened to be in the early 70s. I wasn't flying, but I knew about the skydiving club over by Clinton, and so I just went over and trained in the manner Jeff just explained, and made a few jumps, not very many, and then didn't jump for a long time, and I was flying for the skydiving club up at Minear, and I just happened to mention to Ralph, who was the chief pilot and jumper, I'd like to make one more jump, and he said, well, we can arrange that. So one day after work, I drove up there, and he packed a chute for me, and we went up, and he kicked me out, and that was my last jump.
Now he used the operative word there, Lloyd, packed, packing the chute. Now that's a science, and it's a very precise thing. So, Rob, go ahead and tell us about how you prepare to jump.
Back when Kurt made his jump there again, and the way I started, we were still using the old military chutes, the round ones. And that was one of the prerequisites that the club had, because it was all a volunteer organization, nonprofit, nobody got paid. You want to jump, you got to pack your own parachute. Packing? I don't know nothing about packing. Well, they had a packing class, was part of it. 8 hours of training that you had where you'd pack the parachute.
That's a class you don't want to flunk.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But the old round parachutes, it took 2 people to pack.
Seriously.
You have to stake the top of it out in the ground or against the corner of the hangar. And then you'd have to stretch it all out. And then you'd have somebody at the one end with the parachute harness container on. And they'd stand there and they'd do what they called hold tension. And they'd pull back on it to hold it nice and tight. And then you'd sit there and you'd flake out all the different seams, just like you'd be folding a sheet or something like that. You'd get it all laid out, fold it in one hand, and put it down on the ground. And it'd be 25 foot long.
Sure.
And then you'd start at the top and then work your way right back down to the harness container system and just folding it all up, putting it in a little bit of a bag, stowing all the lines with rubber bands. And everything kind of fit in together.
Rubber bands. That kind of makes you wonder about that sport, doesn't it? 648-5510. Our guest this morning, Jeff Hayes and Curtis Fox. Curtis is a native boy. We're sure glad he stuck around in Lincoln, Logan County. He has good history in this community. His father was superintendent of Lincoln State School when it was in its heyday, and it was really something in the community. And George ran in his infinite wisdom, got that goal. So 648-5510. In the meantime, we'll defer to Mr. Ash and his control board, and we'll go to our sponsors. Morning on Viewpoint, Mr. Jeff Hayes and Curtis Fox, members of the Illinois Valley Parachute Club. Now, that means that they jump on their own, folks. They don't push them out of the airplane. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to call. They would be very happy to share their knowledge with you. 648-5510. Jeff, did you ever have any unusual things happen to you in your membership time with Illinois Valley?
Well, there's a lot of different things happen over the years that I've been there. But I guess the most unusual thing that I found was just about every pilot that flew our jump aircraft out there has landed the jump airplane back at the airport without an engine running. For some reason or another, they don't quite put enough gas in the airplane over and over.
So they floated in.
Yeah, so they floated in. The reason that happens is because we're putting 5 people in a 4-passenger airplane. We've taken out all the seats to make it lighter and everything, but they still can't put so much fuel in it, it gets it too heavy.
Yeah.
And so they're always watching, make sure they only have enough to what they need. And just about everyone has landed without an engine running. Now, I don't know about Curtis.
I'd like to point out that has never happened.
Never happened to you?
being the careful person that he is, he makes doggone sure that plane is topped off.
He does do that pretty well.
Yeah, so for those who maybe are tuning in late, we're talking with Curtis Fox, Jeff Hayes with the Illinois Valley Parachute Club. The Illinois Valley Parachute Club now is, I don't know what the proper term is, in residence at the Logan County Airport?
We have moved permanently to the Logan County Airport. We had a grass strip in Minear that our membership got so low that we couldn't hardly maintain the place anymore. 2,500-foot grass strip, and we had 2 hangars, and we just couldn't hardly keep the grass mowed. So we got the opportunity to come down here. We used to jump down here at Lincoln in the wintertime. We couldn't use our airstrip in the winter, so they'd invite us to come down here a few years back. And then when we got to the point we are now, we asked about coming back down permanent. And Gene Rolfe, the airport manager, talked to him, talked to the city council, and got the okie dokie. They allowed us to come back and set up residence down here at Lincoln. It's worked out great.
Which is kind of an economic impact on this for the city, too. You fellas spend a little money when you come down here to Lincoln.
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much every time after we get done jumping, we go downtown and have a little something to eat and a few beverages. Always after jumping.
We have a reserved table at Spirited Republic.
And Gene's real happy with us buying fuel out there.
Well, yes, I would think so.
Yeah.
This is not an inexpensive sport. Gasoline's very expensive.
Yeah.
And they may be small airplanes, but they use up a lot of gas. And do you have any female members of your Illinois Valley group?
As a matter of fact, we do. We have still have one young lady, Tanya Royer. She's from Eureka, Illinois. She's been jumping, I think, about 4 years now, trained at our club through the static line program. And again, on the static line program, you had to make 5 static lines before we let you go out.
Explain static lines.
Static line is just like what you see in the Army. When you saw all the Army guys jump out, they hook up a line on a cable inside the airplane, and they're all lined up, and they're what they call the jump master is standing by the door. He says, "Go, go, go," and then everybody just jumps out. Well, there's a line hooked to the airplane that hooked to the chute to where you get about 10 feet away from the airplane, and it automatically pulls the chute open.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got a piece of Velcro on it that is made it to where it has to have so much stretch and so much tension, which makes sure that the parachute's actually out of the container before it lets go. So you had to do 5 of those before you could pull your own ripcord, and she went through all that, and she does a fantastic job. She has 1 child of her own and then has adopted 3 others over these last few years, and she is a wonderful mother and still finds time to come down once in a while, and once a month at least, and come down and keep current and make skydives. So we're very happy to have her.
I'm trying to think. A mother who has a lot of responsibility, tons of responsibility, jumping out of an airplane.
Yeah. So she's very cautious and very careful, and we've had a tremendous safety record over the years. I know the club moved to Minear in 1975, and they've had 2 different aircraft. We've gone down. We bought a second aircraft because we got so busy and so big, had as many as 100 members, and now we're down pretty small to only half a dozen so members. But we sold the other airplane, and we had our own hangar, built our own hangar, and we prospered when the times were right. In the 90s and early 2000, 2010, it was wonderful. Skydiving was really big, really taking off, a lot of advancements. The club was being exposed a lot. So
648-5510. This may be your opportunity, ladies and gentlemen, to have one little thrill in your life before you check out. Jeff Hayes, the Illinois Valley Parachute Club, and Curtis Fox, a Lincoln member, they'd be happy to see and talk to you about potential membership. They just explained the rudiments of it, and that in and of itself take a little time, Lloyd.
Yeah, absolutely. I was looking at your website prior to you folks being here. I see you've got information there for jumpers, for first-time jumpers. Apparently you also train instructors. Is that accurate as well?
Well, no, we have instructors that do the training.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So when someone becomes a member of the parachute or the Illinois Valley Parachute Club, like, how does that work? Like, does a membership, do you pay a monthly fee and then it gets you X number of jumps, or what does a membership involve?
Membership is a $100 donation for a year, and that basically gives you a $5 discount on all your jumps. So on about 20 jumps are $20 for a member, $25 for a non-member. So in 20 jumps, you'll get your $100 back. You'll save that. But it basically doesn't give you much opportunity other than knowing the phone numbers of everybody and the right to come out and get the airplane out and get a pilot and go jump just about whenever you want. There's not a whole lot of benefit other than cheap jumps, relatively cheap jumps. When you go to the commercial centers, they're $30 and up for a jump. But they're different aircraft and what have you. This is a small grassroots type thing, and that's why it's cheaper,
Have you ever talked to a ex-military man who'd been in the service and learned to jump militarily?
Just a couple of guys, yeah, and most of them, they really don't understand anything about skydiving. They understand jumping out of the airplane and a parachute opening. But skydiving, the way we're teaching is, once you go through the original program and get licensed, after about 25 jumps, actually you get to go up to free fall before you're licensed with an instructor. But once you're licensed, you go up to 10,000 feet, you jump out, and you free fall until you get down to about 3,000 feet, and then you pull your ripcord. And you're free falling with a couple other people, and you're basically dancing in the sky.
I was getting ready to mention free fall, so I lost a little bit of my interest, Lloyd.
That's where the fun's at, in the free fall, in my opinion. Canopy ride's fun, too. They're making these canopies now that are like little pocket rockets. I mean, you see them slope soaring now. You see YouTubes and that where they're flying along the mountains, with their parachutes or coming off the top of a mountain, and down. And I'm not real into that because the closer you get to the ground, the more dangerous it is. Higher your altitude is always your friend, is what we always said. So,
where do you get your, whence cometh your parachutes? Where are they manufactured? Where are they?
There's several manufacturers. In fact, there's a lot of them overseas now. Over in Africa, South Africa.
I'm starting to lose interest.
Yeah, I kind of like the ones made here in the States, but they follow some other examine rules for how they have to be constructed and testing that you don't have for the stuff made out of this country. But there's different manufacturers. Back in the day, they could make their own. In fact, the guy, Bill Patch, the gentleman in Minear that rented us the farm ground, he was kind of an engineer on his own. He had done many things. But he had a gyrocopter back in the 70s which was a little three-wheeled seated thing with a blade in the back or a propeller behind him. And he sewed up a Goliath parachute, what he called a Goliath. And it was probably 2 to 3 times as big as what I would normally jump. I jump about 150 square foot canopy. I think this canopy was probably 300 to 400 square foot. And he hooked that up. He made it all himself and hooked it up onto that gyrocopter and took off on that grass strip and flew around with it, and it all inflated above him and just whatever he wanted to do. Back in the day, that's kind of the way it was. Kind of like barnstormers, the guys with the old airplanes. They could do whatever they wanted. Now it's very regimented.
Speaking of barnstorming, Curtis, the first airplane ride I had was just west of the Logan County Fairgrounds. That was all undeveloped ground. It was rural ground then, and that airplane was a Ford Trimotor.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Now, for the benefit of you listeners out there, the Ford Trimotor was made by the Ford Company, and we called it the Tin Goose because the sides were all corrugated metal. And, of course, had 3 engines up front. And they were there to make money, get people to ride. And I was a kid delivering the courier at that time, and I found out it was going to cost me $5 or whatever it was, and I rode home and got some of my courier money. My mother nearly dropped her drawers when she found out what I'd done. She was very upset with her son. But anyway, that's going to history. Ford Trimotor out there west of town.
Very cool. Yeah. I would like to make one comment about the flights that we make at the Logan County Airport. In the past, we've had our own airport and pretty much had free reign of everything we did. When we were at Minear, we always talked to Peoria Approach Control, the radar facility at Peoria. So they always knew where we were. They always knew where every other airplane in the area was, and there was communications. Now we're at a public airport, so there are other aircraft operating there. But we have 2 frequencies, radio frequencies that we use. One is the local frequency for the Logan County Airport, and we're always talking on that, making sure that any airplane using the airport will know that we have a skydiving operation in existence. The other people that we talk to is now St. Louis Approach Control, and their radar is so powerful that they can see people in the traffic pattern, the aircraft traffic pattern at the Logan County Airport. So they know where we are, and we have the latest electronic equipment on our airplane called ADS-B that shows our airplane, our altitude, the airplane ID on St. Louis Approach Control's radar. So it's very safe. We have to announce our altitudes. We announce before
we jump.
Yeah, before the door opens even.
I believe you announce also once we're clear of the air, once we're down on the ground.
Now that goes to aircraft controllers, that information?
That information goes to all other airplanes in the area.
Yeah.
They're all listening on the radio also, or hopefully they are.
Yeah.
And just to make sure.
The frequency at Lincoln is called Unicom, and it's like a party line for airplanes in what we call uncontrolled airspace. So if they're listening, they're hearing. And St. Louis, can scan the skies and they know what the traffic is. The other thing that we always do here at Lincoln that we didn't do at Minear, well, we did actually. At Minear, we had a NOTAM, a Notice to Airmen, that went on the web and told pilots that there was a skydiving operation at this specific site. Here in Lincoln, we file a NOTAM nationally 2 days before we have operation at Lincoln. And then 1 hour before we start flying, we make a phone call to St. Louis Approach Control to let them know we're going to be starting in 1 hour. So it's a really controlled operation, and everybody knows what's going on.
648-5510. Don't hesitate to ask any question of Curtis Fox or Jeff Hayes.
One thing
Go ahead, Jeff.
Jeff, to explain.
Or Curtis, go ahead.
It was a fun time. We had our first ever night operation at the Logan County Airport.
Yeah, there's since the club has dwindled down in size, it makes it hard to get your qualification jumps to progress for your licenses. Licenses range from A through D, A being the primary beginner, to B, C, and D, which is an expert, is a D. To get your D license, you have to do certain types of jumps, which are higher free falls than normal, or they might be night jumps, they might be water jumps. And so some of the younger people hadn't done any night jumps, like Tanya, the one gal who started in the last couple of years, hadn't done any night jumps. We decided we'd try and have a night jump. And we scheduled it, and we always try to schedule it when it's a full moon. And it was in October, early October. And it was a nice, beautiful full moon that night. We worked on the aircraft to make sure all the lights worked inside the aircraft so the pilot could see what he's doing. And then we also had different lights on all the jumpers, strobe lights on the jumpers so everybody could see each other. And they'd exit one at a time, give them about 5-second delay, and then another one would go. And we put 4 jumpers out. That's how many the plane would hold. And then we'd watch for them to land, come down on the airport. And it's amazing at night to see the city because we're right next to the city. And then you can still see the lights of the runway lit up. So it's real safe, so you know where you're at. Your depth perception is a little bit off. So we had cars driven out onto the edge of the runways, or edge of the ramp, I guess is what they call it, the taxiways and ramps, shining out over the grass. That way the lights were shining down over the grass, not up at us, and it gives you that depth perception, and you just glide on in and right out in front of the car headlights.
Are you getting interested, Lloyd?
If it weren't for my fear of heights, yeah, I'd probably be a lot more interested.
Well, and the interesting thing about the night jump is that we had people come from all over the state
we had
to participate here at Lincoln.
We had guys from Chicago, up around Chicago area, and down around St. Louis also.
Yeah.
So
That's very interesting. I never thought in terms of night jumping.
I think we made
Military, they did that all the time, but civilians jumping out of a perfectly fine airplane when it's 10 o'clock at night. That's another story. I'm starting to lose interest, Lloyd.
Well, you can always come out and take an observer ride also.
Yeah.
We'll put a parachute on you and strap you in the plane, and then you can watch us jump out.
I still think that would qualify me for the divorce court. I'm not sure. Go ahead, Curtis, sir.
Well, and one thing Jeff and the other members of the Illinois Valley Parachute Club got together and set up specific rules for jumping at Lincoln.
Right.
And so that as the skydivers come down under canopy, they don't cross any runways.
Once we get down to, when you hit 1,000 feet, which all the jumpers have an altimeter on their hands,
Sure.
so they know where they're at. Once you get to 1,000 feet, you have to be on one side of the runway for landing. And if you're not on the landing side where you want to land on that side, then you do not cross a runway below 1,000 feet because you got airplanes coming in.
Sure, yeah.
Some airplanes don't have to have radios in a public airport like that, so you always have to keep your eye out because they might not know you're there.
Yeah, I noticed, Curtis, in your Illinois Valley Club, the plane that you have out there, didn't take any time at all, and you were jumped right off the ground. It was a short takeoff.
Well, that day that you were out there, we only had Jeff and a guy from the big drop zone up on the Illinois River at Ottawa. And he was here because there were no other options to jump, and he had purchased a new parachute that he wanted to try out. So we weren't full that day.
Well, you just jumped off the ground.
Yeah, it's a wonderful airplane. The 182, Cessna 182 is the perfect small club airplane.
Yep.
I think.
Yep. You get up north where the commercial centers are, and they'll use a turbine-type aircraft that holds anywhere from 18 to 25 people. And it's a big operation, but it's also very expensive to run those airplanes. So come October, those airplanes go south, and that place is shut down. So there's no place to jump in the wintertime. Fall and spring, well, we get guys that come down to our little place because we try to jump all year round.
So you mentioned how you do instruction for beginner jumpers.
Yep.
And you mentioned just now, you said every jumper has an altimeter on them so they know where they're at height-wise. If I'm a beginning jumper, 2 questions for you. Number one, what kinds of things do I learn in the class? And then what equipment do I need? Is that something that I have to purchase? Is that something the club has? Or the club has some I can borrow until I decide I want to purchase? How does that aspect work?
That's the other thing that comes with your club membership. When you join the club, if you're an active member, or an active jumper, you don't really need any of the club's assets, but the club has student parachutes that back in the day when I started, they were round ones. Well, we've updated since then, so they're all square parachutes with square reserves. We have Protect helmets and altimeters. We have all the equipment anybody needs, little jumpsuits, everything that you need to make your first jump and to continue on. And once you get your license, or once you get, I believe that we used to give 3 jumps with your initial training package, which cost $220, I think, to go through a first jump course. And that gave you 2 or 3 jumps, all the equipment. After that, the equipment rental, I think, was $25 and then $20 for the jump, and which is relatively cheap. And that gave your instructor, too, because you always had an instructor with you, because they got to take you up in the airplane and put you out. If you go to the commercial centers, it'll cost you somewhere close to $100 for every jump or more, because they do a one-on-one type exit with you. They'll have an instructor jumping out with you, so you got to pay for his time, and you got to pay for his parachute and his lift on the airplane, where ours is all volunteer. I've been an instructor. I think I got my instructor rating in 1985, and I think it went out of date just at the end of March this year. Don't know if I'm going to renew yet or not. We didn't have a class last year.
Sure glad I'm frugal. My kids would tell you tight. So I don't have to worry about that anymore, Lloyd.
I would like to point out that not only is Jeff a skydiver, but he's also a pilot. And the club has another pilot, David, who also comes down from Pekin, I believe.
North Peoria, I believe. David
North
lives
Peoria.
there.
So we have a couple of pilots who alternate.
We have one tandem instructor, and we still had 2 of us that still did the static line instructing. But most guys don't want to do the static line instructing anymore, or they don't want to do the static line jumping anymore.
Now, let's explain static line. Let's explain. Static line is attached to the airplane inside.
And you automatically shoots open immediately. But everybody wants to go free fall now, so that's why they want to go to the big airplanes and the commercial centers, because they get to go right into free fall. So,
are you still interested, Lloyd?
My interest is the same as it was before.
We're limited on our membership now, and that's the problem with the club, is we're a living dinosaur, so to speak.
Sure.
Because it's all gone commercial. When I started, nobody got paid to teach skydiving. The only thing, if you taught somebody, you might have got your free jump. You'd throw them out, taught them, put them out first, and then you get to follow them. Hey, I get a free jump. And it was only $3 for a jump back then, too. And a brand new parachute cost you $2,500. 2 parachutes, the harness container, the whole deal. Now it's upwards of $8,000 for a parachute now. So it's rather expensive, but somehow these young kids got a lot of money.
It's expensive. Go ahead, Mr. Fox. You were about
Jeff mentioned the tandem, and we do have tandem.
One tandem instructor out there, and I used to do it too, but I'm getting too old for that. You're kind of like a pack mule.
He has thousands of jumps, tandem jumps, so he's really safe.
That's kind of interesting, because especially you just used, Mr. Hayes. Parachute just getting too old. When you stop to think about that, that's a pretty good accomplishment. So 648, if you might have somebody in Lincoln, Illinois, or Logan County within our hearing distance, call Curtis Fox or to get in touch with him at the Heritage In-Flight Museum out there at Logan County Airport. By the way, just to digress just a minute, that's quite a nice little modest museum out there. They've spent a lot of time and a lot of energy and some money to create a very interesting little museum out there, and it's a very nice thing for Logan County to have. Curtis, go ahead, sir.
Well, I am going to give a tour of the museum to Lincoln Women's Club coming up, and we do like to have a docent available there to show people around and some of the exhibits we have. I would like to say that the Illinois Valley Parachute Club does have a website.
Yes.
ivpc.club. I believe. Yep. And any contact information you could get is on
ivc.club.
Illinois Valley Parachute Club, IVPC.
Oh, PC. Illinois. Okay.
.club. Yeah.
.club, yeah.
Yeah.
And it explains how to get a hold of a person, a little bit about the tandem jumps and about the club itself. Has a phone number. I don't know exactly what the phone number is, but the best way to do is go on that website. And we're also on Facebook. You can find us on Facebook.
So in terms of calendar days, you have a novice out there and they decide he wants to try this. How long in a period of time would it be from the time he shows interest until he gets his first jump, or her first jump, as the case may be?
Well, the way we're doing it now is on tandem jumps, and you make the phone call and you make an appointment with the man. You show up, and it could be any day of the week, Monday through Sunday. You know, if he's available. He does have a job, a real job also, but he'd be able to do them on the afternoons, evenings, here in the summertime, and then the weekends, definitely Saturday and Sunday afternoon. You make the phone call and make a plan, and you come down, and within an hour, you get down there in less than an hour of training, and you're ready to jump. You'll strap on with him and go up to 10,500 feet, and the two of you will jump out and free fall down to about 4,000 feet, and then he'll pull the ripcord and then give you about 3 or 4 minute of canopy ride. Land you right back down where you took off from.
3 or 4 minutes of... That was it. Have you talked with Mrs. Ash about this, James?
How long do you free fall?
The free fall is about 45 seconds.
Oh, that's
and it goes by in about 5 seconds.
But when you count 45 seconds, 1,001, 1,002, it takes a little time to get to 45 seconds.
It honestly does.
Long time.
Yeah. But like I say, we'll have a lot of times he'll either have a camera on his hand and be videoing you, or they'll have somebody else jump out with you and videoing you. And you'll be surprised how much time goes by when the person actually making the jump thinks, I don't remember any of that. I don't remember any of that. You know, and they love it when they get to go back and see it.
This is your final chance to get a question in with Jeff Hayes and or Curtis Fox. Courteous enough to come up here and spend some time with us on a very nice morning out here. But we appreciate Jeff has made a trip. You live up north of us quite a ways. And it isn't like getting out of the car from Burtonview and driving over here. Curtis, we appreciate your help in getting this arranged for us this morning. This is something a lot of old-timers who come around the military and so forth are aware of, but just a smattering of ignorance. So a little knowledge is a dangerous thing.
Come visit us. We'll take care of you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Jeff Hayes and Curtis Fox. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The preceding program is a presentation of WLCN 96.3 FM and WLCNonline.com.